What is going on, spectators? Welcome back to another episode. Today, it is just going to be myself, and we are going over the NFL Week 5 winners and losers. We're going over an incredible first ever multi-game, multi-team wild card weekend in the MLB. And I'm ready to get into it. We're going to look at some predictions going into the DS series as well. And I just want to break it down because there was a lot of really good stuff. We're going to start off right away with the NFL Week 5 stuff. And there's a lot of winners, there's a lot of losers. This is kind of the weird part of the NFL year where you really start to see who's who. Really, I like to think week 7 is. So when that week 7 episode comes out, I think we'll have a really good idea of who's legit and who's not, because there's some teams that have a lot of wins that I don't think will end up with a lot of wins, but at the moment they do. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at all that. My first winner for the week is going to be none other than the New York Giants. Let me tell you something. The New York Giants are the biggest surprise of the season so far. I don't know how much of a contender they are. Daniel Jones is still, in my opinion, maybe the worst starting quarterback in the league, which is a pretty aggressive take. But I think a lot of people might agree with me on that. If you just watch Daniel Jones, he doesn't do anything that you're wowed about. But last week he had a good week, and that's the issue with him. That's it. Last week against the Packers in London, the London series continues. They get another pretty decent game, back-to-back good weeks. So shout out to London for getting a decent NFL product out of us. Um, that was about his ceiling, Daniel Jones, and his ceiling is beating the Packers, which that's a really good ceiling, but in a pretty low scoring, much you had to come back affair that you got an uncharacteristic second half out of the Packers. They didn't score a single offensive point. The only point they got was out of a elected safety from the Giants to try and milk the clock and get better field position. Otherwise, the Packers would have been shut out in the second half. And that's just not really something that's going to happen with the Packers, really, ever. So it was kind of uncharacteristic. Good adjustments by the Giants. And at this point, Dable is looking like he's going to be coach of the year. Obviously, there's plenty of things to change. It's week 5, right? So, I mean, if the Giants wind up winning 7, 8, 9 games, I would find it hard to believe another coach outside of Dable wins coach of the year unless somebody else goes crazy and just goes on a run and turns around the script like the Raiders wind up winning their division or something crazy like that. Um, but as of this moment, he has my vote, coach of the year. Saquon might be comeback player of the year. I think he's second in the league in rushing right behind Nick Chubb, so he's been balling. I don't think the Giants are going to be good moving forward, but I do want to give them their week 5 flowers, and they are a winner absolutely for this week. Let me know if you guys agree with any of my winners and losers too. Um, Again, it's kind of hard to judge the players and the teams at this point. But this is an easy one. Loser, the Denver Broncos, man. If you guys have been on Twitter the last like 5, 6 days, it has been nonstop. Like usually when somebody has a bad game, bad performance, bad, couple of quarters or something like that, the memes happen and they go away. No, we're 5 weeks in and the Broncos just cannot score. This offense is horrible. Horrible. And I think a lot of it comes down to Nathaniel Hackett, the head coach. He was brought in, he's a first year head coach, to be an offensive mind. A lot of people thought he might be a really good offensive mind. He was working with Aaron Rodgers over there in Green Bay. It shows how much of a crutch Rodgers is, and having Devontae Adams and obviously Aaron Jones, and they have a great O line. So, like, he had every piece he could have ever wanted. And then you go to a situation which isn't quite as good, but you go get a potential Hall of Fame quarterback in Russell Wilson, who is not even remotely looking like a Hall of Fame quarterback. He looks really, really, really bad. They scored 9 points in probably the worst game I've seen ever. Like, I've seen this game was worse than the Blizzard Bowl last year between the Bills and the Patriots, because at least that game had an excuse, right? It was an actual blizzard. They couldn't throw the ball. And this winds up being 12-9 in overtime. Nathaniel Hackett goes for it on 4th down instead of taking the points to go for the tie. They go for the win instead of the tie. And if they get the tie, They went to being 2-1. Instead, they're 2-3. Now they're under 500. They're not winning their division, and they can't score. And I thought this might be a couple week thing, but we're going into week 6, and this offense has looked putrid. While meanwhile, in Seattle, Geno Smith is one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the league at the moment, especially statistically. I don't know if this is something sustainable for him, but he is looking incredibly accurate. He's making big throws, and they're scoring a lot over there. So it looks like the Seahawks might have dodged a bullet by selling a lemon really high in Russell Wilson and then like getting the opposite of a lemon in Geno and just making him blossom. So I guess that's going to be my winner. They still lost, right? The Seahawks still lost this game to the Saints, so it's hard to call them a winner. But I think big picture, they're absolutely a winner because this team looks like they're trying harder. Tyler Lockett still looks like a stud, so that's good. He had a really good week. Their weaknesses were O-line before Russell Wilson was traded, and then D-line was starting to get really bad. Their front seven wasn't the best like it used to be back in the Legion of Boom. Russell Wilson's O-line was horrible. He was running for his life, and it might have been because they didn't like him. Because the Seahawks O-line now, I mean, they look incredible. They're giving up like no pressures, even to like good teams like the Saints with Cam Jordan. They're not giving any pressures. Obviously, the game wound up ending because they got to him a little bit, and that was after a 32-39 just like slugfest. Right, these O-lines were tired, but I think the Seahawks are a winner, man. They don't win this game. They lose to the Saints, and they don't like game plan for Taysom Hill at all, which is like cardinal sin number one. If you guys see Taysom Hill in a game, he's running. It's just that simple. He's not throwing the football. He's not there for smoke screen and smoke and mirrors. He's going to run the ball, and the Seahawks couldn't stop that. If they could have, they probably win this game. But Geno is the biggest singular player shock of the season, and I'm just so impressed with him. And he's so confident. I saw in like a post game interview, he was just like, "Did you expect this out of yourself?" He was like, he responded, he's like, "Yeah, did you ever think I could throw like this?" And it's like, "No." And he's like, "Oh, well, I guess you never seen me throw the ball." And it's like, that's my guy right there. That's my guy. That's my guy. So I'd feel pretty, maybe not confident. It's still a tough division, although everybody in that division is losing right now. At first place is the 49ers at 3-2. So the Seahawks are only a game back of them. So anything can happen if they beat the 49ers. Who's to say? Who's to stop them? Who's to stop them? Another loser this week is the Lions. The Lions, we've known their defense has been susceptible to giving up a lot of points. They gave up 29 points to the third string Patriots quarterback, a rookie, Zappy. And first of all, Zappy looked pretty okay. He looked great, but he looked okay, right? He had some moments. Shout out to Ramondre Stevenson. I can never pronounce his name, but Ramondre Stevenson, I'm pretty sure is how you say it. He went crazy. He took over Damian Harris's spot because he went down with an injury early in the game, popped off a 161. And whatever the Patriots scheme was this game, they really went all in to shut down the easy throws for Jared Goff. I know it's easy to say, like, yeah, they make a lot of big plays, but a lot of those big plays are created by their playmakers. Like, Amon-Ra St. Brown is a playmaker. Reynolds is a playmaker. Like, they get the ball and they make stuff happen. A lot of after-the-catch type stuff. They kind of shut them down beforehand. Amon-Ra St. Brown only had 4 receptions in this game, and it came down to the Reynolds boys over there to get any sort of offense going. But they didn't score a single point. The league's best offense coming into this week gets blanked, and they still give up the typical amount of points that they have all year. So they don't score. They give up 29, and the Patriots are not the Patriots of old. This is not a Belichick Brady Patriots team. Again, a third string quarterback who's a rookie, his first ever start. And all the trajectory that the Lions have been kind of creating. I know they've lost a lot of tough games this year. They were 1-3. Everybody felt like they were probably a better team than that just watching them. This was a massive step back. And it just goes to show how hard the NFL is. No matter trajectory, no matter the hype, Like people were saying Jared Goff was like the next coming. Like he's always involved in these elite offenses. He showed that there's a reason that they're going to be using him as a transitional quarterback instead of the guy moving forward. This is one of those games exactly why. He just didn't show up. The offense didn't show up. And they got owned. They really just got smacked in the teeth. So shout out to the Patriots for a really good game plan there. Um, Another loser, because this is a tough one. The Chiefs, or not the Chiefs, the Chargers and the Browns game. Let's These two franchises, right? The Chargers and the Browns love to lose games they deserve to win. They just love to. They absolutely love it. It's disgusting. I hate watching it. It's bad football. Austin Eckler finally wakes up. Austin Eckler had 170 yards on the ground. I think he had another 30 or 40 through the air. He was finally back. They get the rush game going finally, which is crazy because their O-line's been getting less healthy as the year's gone on, but the rush game's been getting better. So whether that's just like a zone scheme or whatever they're employing over there, I'm not exactly sure. Herbert still doesn't look 100%. He definitely doesn't look like the guy he is when he's healthy. But Brandon Staley is really, really aggressive as a head coach, right? And I think aggressiveness is really good when it's done at the appropriate times, which there are more often than not appropriate times, right? But going for a first down with less than a minute left in your own half, they're at the 50-ish, but in your own half, 4th and 2, up 2 points might be the single stupidest coaching decision I've seen in the NFL since Brandon Staley last year took a timeout in overtime to give the Raiders an opportunity to score and beat them, kicking the Chargers out of the playoff hunt and contention. Brandon Staley makes just stupid bonehead decisions all the time, despite how smart and like charismatic he might seem. And they're lucky they won this game. I don't think he got fired if they lost this game, but they're lucky he won this game. It came down to Cleveland missing the kick. Cleveland gets the ball after the Chargers don't get that 4th and 2. They go a couple yards. They miss the kick. If they hit it, they win. And this is a very different narrative we're talking about. Man, the Chargers have a lot of issues, and it's mostly down on the coaching staff. Like, I don't think they game plan, like, at all. Like, I think they just go out there and hope. This team is too talented to be, like, winning games the way they do and losing games the way they do. And they are absolutely a loser. The Browns are a loser because they tweeted 3 weeks ago that this is why you draft a kicker, and then that same kicker misses the game winner. You can't do that. You got to gift wrap the game, especially at the end there. You can't do that. Deshaun Watson's coming back relatively soon, though. Jacoby Brissett's not been horrible. Jacoby Brissett's been better than a handful of starters in this league to this point. So shout out to Jacoby. And then Nick Chubb's been the best running back in football for the last 2 years now. So, like, as a whole, right? The whole product of Nick Chubb. So shout out to Nick Chubb. He keeps it going. He had 2 touchdowns and over $1. But that game was loser to watch. It felt like a high scoring version of the Broncos Colts game, and that's not a good place to be at all. So, I'm trying to think if there's any other winners or losers I have right now. Josh Allen's a winner. Josh Allen and the Bills. Actually, no, Josh Allen's not a winner. The Bills are a winner. The Bills are a winner because they drafted a project quarterback that actually worked out. It never happens. I swear projects don't ever work out. When you look at the Daniel Joneses, the Sam Darnolds, there's so many of them. There's so many of them. There was a quarterback from Memphis a couple years ago. I'm blanking on his name. He didn't work out. And then so many quarterbacks just don't work. Trey Lance, he gets hurt after sitting for a full season. Now he gets hurt. He'll probably not work out just based on how statistics work. You're not going to become an elite level quarterback in your third season, but first actually starting. And it's just so unlikely. But Josh Allen has just developed into a top 3 quarterback in the league at worst, and at best he might be the best quarterback in the league. 424 yards. He had 370 at the half, which was a Bills record. He was threatening to break the all-time record. He had 42 on the ground. So almost 500 all-purpose yards for Josh Allen. He did throw a pick. Who cares? Who cares? They brought Case Keenum into this game at the end. Shout out to Case Keenum. He got to see the field. We love me some Case. Yeah, the Bills are just absolute winners because what they've done in developing Josh Allen, and now he has so many weapons with Gabe Davis, who's their third string wide receiver, maybe second, depending on the depth chart that day. He's turned into a legitimate wide receiver. Stephon Diggs is obviously great. They had a guy looming in the background. Shakir gets his first start and his first catch in the NFL this week. He gets a tutty. He had 75 yards. Shout out to him. He wasn't even playing because they just had depth at the wide receiver position. They have a dog pretty much at every spot besides running back, and they just don't need. They're showing like running backs don't matter. They don't run the ball at all. And they're putting up 38 against a pretty good Steelers defense. By the way, the Steelers are cooked, if you didn't know. This is going to be Mike Tomlin's worst year. I think we all kind of expected that. It's okay. And I think that's where I'm going to leave the NFL chatter because everybody else is... There's so many 3-2 and 2-3 teams right now that I can't dissect who's good. And then even with the Giants, they're 4-1. I don't love them. I think the Cowboys are actually in a better spot than I would like to say. They beat the Rams last night. Matt Stafford looks tired. They're having a Super Bowl, like, not a hangover at this point. They're just dehydrated. Nobody gave them Pedialyte. They're kind of going through a 2-game losing streak for the world champions. I don't know. I don't like the landscape of the NFL right now outside of the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Eagles. Everybody else, I think, kind of sucks. That's just me. I think the 49ers, if they get healthy, will actually be in that conversation too. But they are not healthy yet, so who cares? They also lost Mosley. I think he tore his ACL last night. So the 49ers curse continues. It continues. Now I'm going to pop on over to the wild card because the wild card in the MLB, this was the first time they had ever done a 3-game series wild card with the expanded, right? So there was 4 series, 3-game series. Then the 1 and the 2 seed for each league got buys, essentially. So the Yankees, Astros, Dodgers, and Braves all got a bye. So we had to see a 100-win team in the Mets have to play in a wild card. And spoiler alert, they blew it. The lull Mets are going to lull Met. It's kind of embarrassing at this point, right? The New York Mets have been long known over the last 4, 5, 6 years to be wasting the career of Jacob deGrom. He was a late bloomer. It's notable that he's the same age as Clayton Kershaw, and he's only pitched like half the seasons, although he's been fantastic in pretty much every season he's pitched in. He has a losing record as a starter because they can't provide offense for him, despite him being the most dominant pitcher I've ever seen. And now he's going into a contract year. They lose at home to a worse Padres team who don't have their best player. Man, the Mets. Oh, my God. They go and they spend money to get Max Scherzer. He gets lit up in game 1. Absolutely lit up. That's the reason they went and got him. He was getting $40 million plus a year. They went and paid Max Scherzer. I get it. Max Scherzer's a Hall of Famer. He's been incredible. He's had an amazing career. He won a World Series. But that is about as bad of a start as you could have drawn up. The Mets lose 7-1 in game 1. Scherzer gets rocked and booed off the mound. He got booed. $40 million to boo him off the mound in game 1. Reminds me of the other pitcher over in New York in the wild card last year, but this was somehow even worse because the Mets were obviously favored. They won 100 games, and he blew his last start against the Braves that if they won that or any of the other 2 games against the Braves, they didn't need to be in this situation. So the full last 2-week collapse of the Mets, where they lose, get swept by the Braves, which is the only real realm that they don't win this division, happens, then they have to play the Padres, and even if they beat the Padres, now they have to go play the Dodgers. They hand gift wrapped an easier way for the Braves to not only get into the playoffs, but to win the division and then maybe go back to the World Series to go back to back. It's just a bad look. It's a really bad look, and the Mets are gonna Met. They do it every year. I hate saying that an organization is gonna do what the organization does, but sometimes like there's a reason for it, right? Like sometimes winning's just not in your DNA. Sometimes it's just not. Man, so the Padres advanced. They're going to play the Dodgers. The other side of that is the Phillies. The Phillies took care of business. Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola are the best, and I will double down on this. They are the best 1-2 starting combo left in the playoffs right now. They are the best. Zach Wheeler was third in Cy Young last year. He's been fantastic this year. Aaron Nola is probably going to be top 3 in Cy Young this year. They've both been amazing. Aaron Nola's gotten his home runs per 9 down. And he has a weird ERA because his ERA is super high, but it's also because the defense makes a lot of errors, particularly with him, because he's like a guy who gets the ball and play a lot. But he's pitched very well, and the results are just not fully there because of the defense. But when Alec Boehm is making plays like he did against the Cardinals, I don't know how much of a problem that's going to be. Also, this is a weird series, too, because Kyle Schwarber did virtually nothing. Nick Castellanos did virtually nothing. And they still were able to score. Bryce Harper had a big home run. And the storybook careers of future Hall of Famer Albert Pujols and maybe Hall of Famer Yadier Molina both end on singles and hits, which is a cool way to end it. I didn't love that the way that the Cardinals managed the series either, because they let Yadi hit 2 consecutive games in the 9th inning when he has just not had a good season at the bat. It felt like they're like, oh, well, this is your last season, so go ahead and hit. Try and win the game so that this isn't his last game. If you take him out, bring in a bopper, and he gets a hit or a homer, like anybody else maybe could, because Yadi's not hitting homers anymore, maybe you're still playing. Instead, they try and give him the storybook finish, and, now they're out. They get swept at home 2 games by the Phillies after having a gigantic lead and just an all-time collapse by Ryan Helsley in the 9th inning of Game 1. Helsley was one of the best relievers in baseball this year, and for him to collapse the way he did, essentially ending the Cardinals season because it put him in a really bad situation. It's tough. Not a whole lot of other ways to put it. It's absolutely tough. Shout out to the Phillies. Phillies get the Braves, so we get 2 divisional matchups with Padres Dodgers, Phillies Braves over in the NLDS. Sliding on over to the American League. The Blue Jays. The Blue Jays. Oh, man. The Blue Jays came into this season with maybe the highest expectations of any American League team. I know a lot of people still thought the Astros were going to be good, and clearly they proved that they were going to be great. They won the American League this year, and kudos to them. But I think mostly money-wise, if you had to look at Vegas, the Blue Jays were probably the favorites to win the American League, especially after getting Jose Barrios. They went and got Yusuke Kikuchi. They didn't re-sign Robbie Ray, but they went and got Kevin Gausman, who I think is a direct upgrade to Robbie Ray, and it kind of showed, too. Blue Jays should have been great. Vladdy was coming off almost a Triple Crown year. Bo Bichette is a silver slugger looking. Obviously, George Springer is a playoff dog, and I hope he's good. After that nasty collision he had with Bo Bichette, he got carted off the field. I hope George Springer is all good and that he'll be good to go and nothing too crazy happened. If he did get a concussion, I'm not exactly sure what happened with him. I haven't double-checked, but hopefully he's okay. The Blues get shut out in Game 1. They got shut out in Game 1. They wanted to go get a high-end starter. They didn't get Luis Castillo. The Mariners got Castillo and then signed him to an extension. Castillo absolutely shoved in this game. I mean, he was throwing 100, 101. He doesn't do that. He throws hard, but he doesn't throw 100. He was throwing 100, 101 in this game with just pinpoint accuracy, and the Blue Jays were kind of lost. It was a right-hand heavy lineup, too. And with the heavy sinker that he throws and then the changeup, that's one of the best in a game. I mean, his changeup and Devin Williams are like 1-2 in terms of how good they are as pitches. They mowed them down in Game 1. That's fine. It happens. You have 2 more games. Come back. You're at home. They put up an 8 spot. They're up 8-1 on the Mariners. Robbie Ray got shelled against his old team. He pitched. Blue Jays lit him up. Teoscar had 2 home runs. The second biggest comeback in a single game in MLB postseason history happened in this game. The Mariners come back from 8-1 to win it 10-9. Carlos Santana hit a 3-run homer. They pull Kevin Gausman after getting 2 outs. It was bases loaded. They leave him in. He gets 2 outs. Then they take him out to bring in the lefty Tim Maiza against Carlos Santana, who hits lefties 10 times better than he hits righties. He first pitch pass ball, scores a run. Later in the at-bat, he hits that 3-run home run. I guarantee you, and it's easy in hindsight to say, but I guarantee you if they leave Kevin Gausman in, they win this game and they win the series. I think they would have won Game 3 last night. Instead, they take out Kevin Gausman. They wind up losing this game. It's just heartbreak. And Vladimir Guerrero said last year was the trailer, this year was going to be the movie, and this movie ended poorly. It was like a bad Netflix rom-com that nobody has seen because it had a bunch of actors that they really liked, but they just saw the Rotten Tomato scores and didn't go check it out. Not good. Also, Vladdy walked off the Yankees. I'm going to be a little bitter about this because, as you guys know, I'm a Yankee fan. Vladdy walked off the Yankees, I think, the last week of the season. That he goes, this is my house. Since he said, this is my house, the Yankees won the American League East. Aaron Judge tied the home run record. The Blue Jays give up the second biggest comeback in MLB history, and they get swept at home by the Mariners, who had not been to the playoffs in 20 years. Not a great way to defend your house, Vladdy. Not a great way to defend your house. And then we move to the last series. This series sucked. I'm just going to be very transparent with you guys. This Rays-Guardians series was horrible. Pitching's great. We knew this was going to be a pitching matchup to begin with. I mean, the over-under for Game 2 was 5. 5 for a full baseball game is crazy low. It's crazy low. Usually it's around 7, 8, 9 for the over-under. The under hit on both of these games. The only runs, there was 4 runs total scored in this series. It was a 2-game series. It lasted 24. That's right. 24 innings in 2 games because they went to 15 in Game 2. Every single run was scored on the home run. So don't give me this contact hitters. I need contact situational hitters. No. The long ball wins in the playoffs. It always does. It always will. Jose Ramirez wins Game 1 with a 2-run homer. After Jose Siri took the lead early, Jose Siri hit a home run for the Rays in Game 1. That was the only run that they were going to score the entire series. I actually want to see how many strikeouts the Rays in total had, because that would be an interesting little nugget. Game 1, they struck out 9 times. And what about Game 2? This is going to take 1 second. Game 2, they struck out 20 times. The Rays struck out 29 times in 2 games. 29 times. And I'm not against the strikeout. I think strikeouts are fine, especially if you're going to hit home runs. But when you score 1 run and you strike out 29 times, you have to look inward this offseason. The Rays, they've been fantastic about building pitching. They grab any Tom, Dick, and Harry from the side of the street and make you into an elite arm, whether it's starter or reliever or spot starter, or you're going to throw a slider, you're going to throw a running fastball, and you're going to be productive for this Rays bullpen. But they need to look inward and get some bats, because this formula that they're developing, this next man up mentality that they're developing, is not working in terms of production. Yes, they've been to a World Series. It was a weird year in 2020, but they did go to a World Series. Hasn't been great since. Losing to the Guardians, who were supposed to be a basement dweller. And he got kind of smoked. I mean, they only won by 2-run differential, but they outlasted you, they outpitched you, and they outhit you. They outfielded you. So, the Rays are going to have to do some soul searching, because the formula ain't there. It ain't working. And now we're going to go ahead and hop over to the current playoffs bracket with the updated teams. This is what we're looking at here. And looking at a couple of pretty darn good series, 3 of the 4 divisional rivalries, which I think will play a big part. A lot of these teams are familiar with each other. They've played each other 19 plus times. I mean, that's just a crazy amount. This is going to be 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 if it goes 5. 24 matchups between a team if it goes 5 is just ridiculous. And then you have the Yankees Guardians. We'll start with that one because it's the most foreign of the two. The Yankees won the regular season matchup in this. The Yankees outscored them. I think it was 36-14 off the top of my head. So the Yankees hit what the Guardians were pitching. It was a little bit before the Guardians got on their hot streak. They did end the season really, really well and ran away with the division. I think people thought they were going to win it, especially by the three-quarter mark of the year. But they really ran away with it at the end. They had an easier schedule, though, but they took advantage of that. The Yankees, they've had a week off. And they've been recovering some injuries. Matt Carpenter is going to be on the playoff roster. And then if you guys didn't know this, Aroldis Chapman is not on the playoffs. Aroldis Chapman's most likely pitched his last inning as a Yankee, which is kind of crazy to think about. He just didn't show up to practice. And Bob Nightingale said pretty much, Chapman said, hey, am I going to be on the roster? And they said maybe. And he was like, oh, maybe he's not good enough, and just didn't show up. So Chapman's career as a Yankee is most likely done. And that's just a wild way for it to end. And I don't think Yankee fans are going to be too upset about it, especially the way he's pitched historically in the playoffs, but also just in general the last year and a half for them. I know I'm not too upset about it as a Yankee fan. Yankees Guardians, if the Yankees hit 7 home runs in this series, I think they win it. I don't think it's going to take a whole lot. Hopefully, if all 7 of those are in one game, then no. But I think if they wind up hitting 2 home runs a game, which I don't see why the Yankees wouldn't do that, or at least have that in them, they'll win this series pretty handily. If the Guardians are able to keep them in the ballpark, though, this could get interesting. Because if they keep them in the ballpark, the Yankees are pretty reliant on their home run ball, although the back half of the season, they got a little bit better at it when Oswaldo Cabrera came up and Matt Carpenter wasn't there to be hitting those long balls. They got a little bit better at it. But Tristan McKenzie is going to be an issue for the Yankees. I think that'll be the hardest pitcher they have to face because Shane Bieber is fantastic and he mowed down the Rays. But the Yankees have had pretty good success against Bieber historically, and especially in the playoffs. Last time they played, I think they put up 7 on him. This is going to be an uphill battle for the Guardians. I don't think it's out of the question. If they can get to the back end of the game, 7th inning, and be winning 2-3-1, I think they have a good chance to win that particular game. If they're winning by 2, the back half of their bullpen up, I think their bullpen is the best probably remaining in the playoffs. Looking at it right now, probably they have the best bullpen remaining. Clase's been all-world. Karinchak's been really good. And then, obviously, they only give a 1 run in 25 innings to the Rays. So, their pitching staff's going to be amazing. I do think the Yankees wind up winning this in 4. I think Cleveland gets a game in Cleveland. In fact, I think they get game 1 in Cleveland. The Yankees are just kind of too good of an offense. And not even too good of an offense, but I think they just wind up getting home runs too often, and the Guardians are not going to be able to overcome 2-3 run deficits. They just don't have the firepower, especially consistently. So I like the Yankees in this one in 4. Sliding over to the Mariners, Astros. This is going to be a big litmus test for the Mariners. I think they're really hot right now. Cal Raleigh is on a tear. Julio's not even 100% back, so if he can become who he's been all year, this actually has a chance to be a really good series. I just think the Astros historically have owned the Mariners, especially since the Astros have come into this division. They don't lose to them a whole lot. Verlander's going to win a Cy Young. I don't expect him to lose his game. That's going to be game 1. That's going to be game 4. So that's you got to win the other 3 games if you're the Mariners. Luis Castillo, thankfully for them, isn't going to pitch game 1, so they kind of stagger it a little bit. Castillo's going to pitch game 2. Logan Gilbert's going to go game 1, so that's decently good news for them. I don't know. If the Mariners can win this, they're going to prove a lot to not only themselves, but to the entire league that they are not, hey, we made it, we're happy to be here, and yeah, we beat the Blue Jays, but they kind of lost it more than we won it. We are here to compete, and we have it in us because they have a great staff. I mean, their 4-man rotation's as good as any in the league with George Kirby and his emergence. Logan Gilbert's looked really good. I mean, I think Robbie Ray is a weak point, and he won a Cy Young last year, which is pretty crazy. And then Munoz is just one of those slept on relievers. He's literally just Edwin Diaz, but throws harder, and his slider is better. He just doesn't have the trumpets, and he doesn't have quite as much swag. Um, I think Munoz is going to be great. If they can sneak a win against Verlander in game one, this could be really, really, really fun. I just think the Astros are better. Altuve, Jordan's been the second best hitter in baseball this year next to Aaron Judge. Altuve put up a better year than his MVP year. So, I mean, this is a really good team that I don't really see losing. But again, it could be a statement win for the Mariners if they get it done. Popping over to the Braves-Phillies matchup. The Braves-Phillies is going to come a lot down to how much the pitching staff of the Phillies can dominate. If the Phillies are able to get 7 innings out of Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler in their 3 or 4 combined starts that they're going to get out of them, if they can go 7 innings, 1 or 2 allowed, this could be really, really good. But if either of those guys lay an egg and give up 4 or 5 in a game, this is going to be bad because their bullpen's not good. And if they have to go to their bullpen early, they're going to just crumble pretty fast. So using their bullpen sparingly, I think they'll get the timely hitting because they are a home run heavy team. It's just like they're not going to outscore the Braves in a high-scoring affair because the Braves have just as good of an offense as the Phillies, and they're going to be facing significantly worse pitching than the Phillies. So they're not going to outpace them if it becomes a run fest. So try and keep these games low-scoring, get deep into the games of your starters. That's the Phillies' recipe for success, and I don't think it's going to happen. I think the Braves wind up actually winning in 4 as well. I don't think they'll sweep them. I think Zach Wheeler is going to cook one game. They'll sneak a win. Harper will hit a homer. Something like that. They're too talented of a team to get swept, I think. And then we got Padres Dodgers. I think the Padres have been awesome, especially against the Mets, but they've kind of been mediocre the most of the year. The pitching staff's been high, been low. I don't like their bullpen outside of Josh Hader, and he's been a lot better in September, but he had a really rough August. I think the Dodgers win this in 3. I think they kind of smoke them out of the gym. I would have really liked to see a Dodgers-Mets series. I think that would have been way better. But the Mets lulled Mets, and they choked. And now the Dodgers are going to sweep. I'm not going to predict any further than that. I do have it being pretty chalk, though, in terms of the 1s and the 2 seeds, which it is what it is. I just think they're better. I think they're significantly better teams, but it's the playoffs, and you don't really know what's going to happen in the playoffs because there's a reason that all these teams are here. Madness usually happens. If there's going to be an upset that I would say happens, I would say they're both going to be on the American League side. I think if there's an upset, it's going to be the Guardians or the Mariners. I don't think that the Braves or the Dodgers lose their series. I don't think that the depth of the National League was anywhere near as good as it was in the American League. And I also think that the 2 good teams in that are just significantly better. So I do expect the Dodgers and the Braves to win. If there's going to be an upset, look for the Yankees, look for the Astros. And that's what I'm feeling on that. And I think that's where we're going to wrap up this episode, guys. I did not expect it to be this long-winded, but we had a lot to talk about, and I wanted a lot off my chest. So thank you, everybody, for watching. If you don't already follow us on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, go ahead, at Spectators Media. Go ahead and check us out on YouTube if you weren't watching this on there. We have a lot of great content for you guys. We have a video with Aaron Judge's, all of his home runs for the season. We got some video essays coming out, especially once the MLB season comes to an end. There's a lot of really good storylines that I want you guys to see the full story of. So we're going to be putting those out for y'all. And if you like it, make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll be back next week. Later, everybody. Peace.